Let's look at how narcissism affects leadership phenomena. There's two key ideas that I want to communicate concerning narcissism and leadership. The first idea is that narcissism favors leadership selection. That's the idea that the people that are higher in narcissism are more likely to be selected for leadership positions than people that are lower in narcissism. And then the second idea is that high levels of narcissism lead to poor leadership performance. And both of these ideas have been validated. I'm leaning heavily on a meta-analysis by Grijalva and colleagues. But these are the two key ideas. Narcissists get chosen for leadership positions more often than non-narcissists, but their performance at high level, people that are very high in narcissism, their performance goes down, is lower than people that are not high in narcissism. Narcissists are often chosen to be leaders, is the first idea. Leadership emergence is positively affected by narcissism. And the reason for this is that people high in narcissism tend to impress people. They have charisma. They're extroverted. They're socially skilled. A lot of times they're humorous. They make great first impressions. They know how to play an audience. They know how to make people feel good. Moreover, they often look like they can be attractive, well-dressed. They take a lot of pride in how they come across to people. They also tend to clearly communicate their self-perceived competence. Even if that competence isn't justified or has been demonstrated, people high in narcissism will communicate that it has been justified, that they are someone special, and that they are someone the best choice for the position in question. Another reason that narcissists often are chosen to be leaders is that they have what's known as a visionary boldness. They claim to know how to make things better. They've got a clear vision for the future on how things can be better than they are now, and they are confident that they can accomplish it. So this self-confidence enables them to claim to be able to change anything. And essentially, they're acting like a prototypical leader. And so when people are chosen for leadership positions, people want people who can change everything, that have no limitations, that can accomplish these bold visions. So leaders are often chosen to be narcissists are often chosen to be leaders. Another way of understanding how narcissists are often chosen to be leaders is through what's known as the dominant complementary model. This is the idea that some people are complementary to each other. They respond to each other's needs. And this dominant complementary model basically says that passive or submissive followers tend to seek and work harmoniously with narcissistic leaders, because the narcissistic leader is providing them something that they need, so they basically provide the resources, which is exactly what the narcissistic leader wants. So the dominating leader promises to achieve goals that followers would not be able to achieve otherwise. He can make it happen, or she can accomplish this bold vision. And sometimes the narcissistic leader actually follows through and achieves these goals, fulfills this vision, making the other people even more appreciative of him or her. The second phenomena that I want to look at is that high levels of narcissism predict poor leadership. Now, it's important to understand that this is a curvilinear relationship. It's not just a straight line. The more narcissistic you are, the worse leader that you're going to make. A lot of studies have shown it to be a flat line, but then through meta-analyses and more sophisticated studies, we've been able to note that, whoa, it's really more of a curvilinear. Really low levels of narcissism, that doesn't make for good leadership because you might not have any vision or ability to motivate people to do anything. But and high levels, there are negative consequences. But that middle level seems to be the most effective, and that's what we have illustrated in this picture. Now, before we talk about why high levels of narcissism predict poor leadership, there are a few things that narcissists have going for them. So some of the strengths of narcissists that promote effective leadership, that can actually cause good things for an organization, is their ability to attract and motivate people. They're good at that. And they're high energy. They can make things happen. They motivate people. They can gather people up in the momentum of making changes. So not everything associated with narcissism is bad. Here are an example of a few positive things. But their weaknesses tend to overrule the strengths. And so some of the weaknesses of narcissists that promote poor leadership include the idea that the interests of the narcissist may not line up with the organization's. And in fact, in the majority of situations, it doesn't. If the narcissist is interested in his or her own glory and convincing other people that they are so wonderful, that can run contrary to the organization's interests. Another weakness is we've seen that narcissism is associated with dishonesty, and that's difficult to make an organization grow in a healthy way when you have leaders who are dishonest. We've seen also that there's this inability to maintain relationships, especially due to this lack of empathy. The narcissist is concerned about their own concern and very rarely concerned about the well-being of their followers, except to the degree that it makes him or her look good. Another issue with narcissistic leaders is that there's little felt need for personal growth. This is associated with overconfidence. The narcissist already thinks that they have their act together, and so they don't need to humbly learn and take in new information and reevaluate and question things that they've already believed. And when working with there's a tendency for narcissists to stifle the expression of alternate opinions. The narcissist is already convinced that their own opinion is a correct one, and so this stifling often takes the form of public humiliation. And after you've been humiliated a few times, you just kind of want to give up contributing. And the narcissist will do this because loyalty to himself or to herself is what is more important. It's more important than truth. So if someone is demonstrating any sign of a lack of loyalty, they can be publicly humiliated. And so this is just a form of one form of abusive behavior and personal attacks. Narcissists might resort to other forms of abusive behavior and personal attacks so that their ideas are not questioned, that no one ever doubts the value of the narcissist. So these weaknesses make it really difficult for narcissists to work together with other people, to benefit from other people's input, to make the very best decisions possible. Basically, narcissists are limited by their own belief of superiority, making them closed to ideas that might actually be better than what they currently hold. These two phenomena can be summarized in what's known as the chocolate cake model of narcissistic leadership. Here we have this giant chocolate cake. And if you were to eat an entire meal of chocolate cake, maybe live an entire day on chocolate cake, maybe live several days on chocolate cake, at first it might seem like a good idea. But the initial attractiveness of the chocolate cake and enjoying how much it is gives way to revulsion and repulsion. And we just eventually get to a point where we don't want any more chocolate cake. And so that's how it is with a narcissistic leader. At the beginning, it seems really great, but after a while, it just becomes repulsive and we can't handle it anymore. So here are some questions to think about to help you reflect here. What experience have you had with narcissistic leaders in organizational context? Now, perhaps you haven't had any examples. I have to admit, I was probably 40 years old before I realized that there were narcissistic leaders out there. Perhaps I hadn't run into any and I just had good examples of leadership. Maybe I was just kind of naive and overly confident in the leadership abilities of people. But once I got a little older and more mature, I started seeing some things that were pretty unhealthy. So secondly, how did these leaders affect people? How did it affect their relationships with the people? How did it affect the people themselves? And was the chocolate cake model applicable? Did initial attractiveness give way to revulsion? And then how did the narcissistic leaders affect the organization?